Welcome to the Auckland Unitarian Church, a place that has been a sanctuary for free thinkers for over 100 years. Most churches are sanctuaries for like-minded people to encourage and support one another. But in some of them, the support can go a little chilly when you find that your freedom is heading in a slightly different direction for everyone else. You feel that you must have broken some unwritten law. Here, we try to find strength in our differences, being guided instead by principles such as compassion and justice. I hope you will all find that kind of support here and that kind of listening to your concerns. I especially welcome members of Rachel's family who are here preparing for their wedding. Glad to see you here. And I understand that Isabel is going to be the flower girl, so we're seeing some of the cast of the service here today. I also welcome Derek Handley, who is taking our address today. We look forward to hearing from you. We also welcome other visitors. We invite you to take part in our worship and discussion, and we invite you to join us in a cup of tea or coffee afterwards. For the opening words today, I've chosen some words on the theme that Derek is speaking about, of hope and reality. Derek didn't pick this particular lesson, but I hope it goes well with what he's going to say. It's a lesson from Luke's Gospel, chapter 19, and it has, for those of you who might know this reading, it has a different punchline from the usual one, which I only discovered a few days ago. The New Revised Standard Version of the Bible is an American-based update of the Bible, and sometimes the scholars who wrote it had different opinions. And in this case, one of the scholars who differed put a footnote at the bottom, and so I'm going to use this footnote. I hope it shocks some of you. Then Jesus told them a parable about their need to pray always and not to lose heart. He said, in a certain city there was a judge who neither feared God nor had respect for people. In that city there was a widow who kept coming to him and saying, "Grant me justice against my opponent." For a while he refused, but later he said to himself, "Though I have no fear of God and no respect for anybody, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will grant her justice so that she may not finally come and slap me in the face." When you celebrate well, but remember that nearby someone is grieving. And when you grieve well, but remember that nearby someone is celebrating. Therefore, as we gather here in this special place, we mark both grief and celebration. We light this chalice for absent friends and also for those whose company we are enjoying right now. I invite you to join with me in the words of our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is the sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each other.
Bridging the gaps between reality and hope. I've been really, really interested in the idea of gaps lately. I think I'm kind of in this mode where I think I've discovered the secret to life. So I think maybe this becomes my life's project. Whichever way we try to get at it or try to describe it, I think that the pursuit that we are all in, at least for the most part, is this pursuit of happiness. And I think that has been the centralized idea across much of human history, at least most of the Western world. In ethics, Aristotle holds it up as the whole aim and end of existence. St. Thomas Aquinas described it as man's last end and supreme good. The philosopher John Locke claimed that the highest perfection of nature lies in a careful and constant pursuit of true and solid happiness. Even Freud said that all humans strive after happiness. America as a country is founded and in the Declaration of Independence enshrines the pursuit of happiness. And we even have one country today, Bhutan, who's adopted it as its national goal in replacement of GDP. So we'll never agree on all the answers of how and why this is perhaps the most common goal. But the question, how to live and how to be happy, I think is a timeless one that we all share. Especially in a generation where we are constantly, maybe more so than ever, dissatisfied with what we have or don't have. It seems today there is never enough. Never enough of the material things that we want. Never enough time. Never enough attention. Never enough love. Never enough peace. Never enough justice. In this space, I think this is the space where psychology, spirituality, religion, motivational or performance coaching all thrive in. The space between our dissatisfaction with the present, our reality, and some form of an idealized future, which is our hopes, no matter how big or small those hopes are. To me, hope is an idea that is out in the world, that kind of starts at the end of your fingertips and then stretches out as far as your imagination can take it. And reality is more in here. It's in this building, it's in this room, it's in this moment, it's in this space and time. And the conversation between the two, what we hope for and the reality that it is, this frontier, to me, is where life is really lived. The conversation between what we hope for and what it is to be living in reality. Because we can't live in the past, the moment that's just gone or the moment that's 10 years ago, and we can't live in the moment that's about to be or the moment that's going to be in 10 years. But our minds constantly move back and forth between the past and the future. Even though our present deserves attention, mostly at this frontier where hope and reality meet. Let me tell you about some of the hopes in my home. I saw one of the little boys run into the room earlier with a Nerf gun. I don't know how many of you know what Nerf guns are. But in my house, in my home, you will find Nerf bullets, which are little foam darts for the kid's toy gun. You will find them in the pot plant on the balcony. You will find them in the kitchen. You will find them in the garden. You will find them in the bedrooms. And you will also find them in the toy cupboard where they should be. But you'll find them everywhere. In the kitchen, on any given day, you'll probably find some tea bags in the sink. There'll be some clothes that shouldn't be where they're meant to be. And in Finn, my little boy's bedroom, it will almost certainly look like a bomb site. And my wife, Maya, hopes every day that Finn and I learn to tidy up after ourselves just that little bit better, and that Finn learns to put the Nerf bullets where they should be. She comes home, she has this hope in her mind, but it's just not the reality. And as she tries, as much as she wants to close this gap, as long as the gap exists, as long as she extends this hope and the reality is so much different from it, will cause her frustration. In my work, in my day-to-day work, Some of the hopes I have with whoever I'm working with, I'm hoping that in the present, that they're thinking ahead. So they're thinking about the things that we need to do today to avoid problems tomorrow. So they're planning in advance of what we might need. They're not forgetting things that have caused problems if we didn't deal with them today. And they can figure things out before they happen. And when that doesn't occur, when I fail to bridge that gap, I get anxious and I get frustrated. And these gaps, even though the ones I just mentioned are very small, when I look at it, the more I attempt to build some philosophy, some idea of what it is to live a peaceful, happy, meaningful life in amongst all the chaos and all the choices we can make, these gaps, I think, are what provide great joy and motivation when we bridge them, but they are the source, as long as they are unbridged, of our disappointment and our unhappiness. You know, most of our anxiety and our unhappiness, I think, come from these gaps that we create in our minds between hope and reality and how we perform and behave within them. Which is why it's so fascinating for me as an idea that our lives, our temperaments are literally made from these gaps we choose to create and how we choose to respond to them. I think for most of us, we all hope to be on time. At least I do. But the reality is sometimes I'm late. We hope to do our best in everything. But the reality is sometimes we let ourselves down and we feel badly about ourselves. We hope to find everlasting love. The reality is half of all Kiwi marriages end up in divorce. We hope for each family in Auckland to be able to afford a home, but the reality is, on average, they're about $1 million. We hope for a country free of poverty, but the reality is people sleep on Queen Street, not by choice, but by circumstance. We hope for a world of justice, but the reality is a plane load of innocent Ukrainians and Iranians going to see friends and family are shot out of the sky. And for a generation, we hope for the world to stop heating up, for it to stop getting warmer. But the reality and the science is that it's actually far too late to reverse it anytime soon. So wherever there is hope, there is a gap that we must learn to live inside of. Inside the gap that is created between what is real and what we wish for. So wherever we find hope, we must also face reality. Because hope alone is not a strategy, but it can be a savior. I found it interesting when I learned that the original names for both the major schools of Buddhism today, the Mahayana and Theravada school, come from the notion of getting from one side to another side over a gap. The gap being a river, and the vehicle to get you across being a raft, and Mahayana being the big raft, Maha being big and Rana being the raft, and Hinayana being little raft. The name Hinayana eventually became the word Theravada. But both rafts, nonetheless, existing to bridge a gap to get to the other side. From one side or one form of reality to another. If we were Buddhists, perhaps we would just accept that all of life is dukkha, as they say, suffering. And to cross that river in the raft, to bridge the gap, is to try to dissolve ourselves into the greater unity of the universe, of all that exists in the world, to a place where we have no attachment and we don't see ourselves as an ego, to a place where we understand that we exist only independent of everything else that exists, that existing independently is a myth. And in this way helps us merge our hopes into a reality. If we were Muslims, we would perhaps agree, submit, and surrender to Allah, who will advise, as the first surah in the Quran, the Al-Fatiha, says, He will advise and guide you on a straight path. Acknowledging your own futility, you would focus your energies on the daily prayers and practices that have been prescribed to Muslims to bridge the gap ever closer through dhikr, acts of remembrance and closeness to God. As the 13th century Muslim scholar Ibn Arabi says, happiness lies in proximity to the divine, whatever that means for you. If we were the great Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius, we would, as he suggests in Book 8 of his Meditations, one of my favorite books of all time, he suggests, this is the chief thing. Do not be perturbed, for all things are according to the law of nature. And in a little time, you will be nobody, and you'll be nowhere, like Hadrian and Augustus. He means we'll be gone. In the next place, keep your eyes fixed steadily on your business. Look things in the face and know them for what they are, remembering that it is your duty to be a good man, and do what a man's nature demands without turning aside, and speak as it seems to you most just, only with a good temper, with modesty, and without hypocrisy. To me, because I'm neither a Buddhist or a Muslim or a Stoic, as much as I've always wanted to try and be a thing, it seems I'm a constant moving target, complex synthesis of all the things I encounter. So to me, it's an ever-changing combination, but more starting with the simple awareness that my day is filled with the gaps between hope and reality, and how I feel about my life is based solely on how I respond to them. To first understand that I am not really who I appear to be, I'm just a temporary collection of ideas and thoughts here just for a short time to do as much good as I can. To pause and get closer to the divine as much as I can. To me, in my world, that could be just breathing, stopping to breathe. Or it could be getting my hands in the soil to plant in our vegetable garden or tend to the unruly tomato plants. To me, that brings me closer to what is the source. And as Aurelius counsels, to accept things as they are. To build a layer in a positive way, a positive layer of detachment. Not detaching from responsibility, but to understand that it is what it is, and it isn't what it isn't. As long as I make my own decisions to play my own part. So for the meditation this morning, I'll read something brief, but invite you to reflect on the gaps that you think exist or that you create in your hopes and your reality in your life and how you think you deal with them. Because no matter how wide the gap is, it is always our choice how we respond to it, how we live inside the gap, whether it's of our own creation or something that has been inflicted upon us. The meditation is my somewhat tailored synthesis of the Serenity Prayer and incorporating Epictetus the Stoic with the more commonly recognized version. Let me make the best use of what is in my power and take the rest as it happens. Let me know that some things are up to me, while others are not. Let me live one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking the world as it is. Give me grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, courage to change the things which should be changed, and the wisdom to know one from the other. Amen. Thank you for being here this morning. May peace, joy, and love be with you as you go about the rest of your day and the rest of your week.